What do you get when a college student threatens to expose her affair with a married professor? Murder. What do you get when a private investigator gets too close to solving that murder? Another murder. And what do you get when an IT worker accidentally discovers evidence of both crimes 15 years later? Justice. This is the story of how wiping old computer files accidentally solved 2 murders. This is probably going to sound unbelievable, but I accidentally solved a missing person case that's been cold for 15 years, and I'm still processing what happened. I work in IT for a small company, and part of my job involves cleaning out old computer systems and servers before they're recycled. Last month, I was tasked with wiping a bunch of old hard drives that came from a law firm that had gone out of business. Standard procedure is to run a full data wipe, but I always do a quick scan first to make sure there's nothing that looks important. Sometimes businesses don't realize they're throwing away something they need. On one of the drives, I found thousands of files from what appeared to be a private investigation firm that had operated from 1995 to 2008. Case files, surveillance photos, background checks, insurance investigations, the works. I was about to wipe it all when I noticed a folder labeled Active Unsolved. Inside were files for 6 cases that apparently were never closed when the business shut down. One of them immediately caught my attention. Rebecca Martinez, missing person, 2009. I remembered this case. Rebecca Martinez was a 19-year-old college student who disappeared from her dorm room 15 years ago. It was huge news in our city. Massive search efforts, media coverage. Her family never stopped looking for her. The case went cold after a few months, and Rebecca was never found. The PI files contained information I'd never seen in any news reports about the case. Surveillance photos, witness interviews, financial records, stuff that went way beyond what the police investigation had covered. What I found in those files was disturbing. The private investigator, a guy named Frank Morrison, had been hired by Rebecca's family about 3 months after she disappeared. Morrison had uncovered evidence that Rebecca had been involved with a much older man, a married professor at her college named Dr. Richard Ashford. According to Morrison's notes, Rebecca had been having an affair with Dr. Ashford for over a year. But it wasn't just an affair. The investigation revealed that Rebecca had become pregnant and was demanding that Ashford leave his wife. The files contained copies of text messages between Rebecca and Ashford from the weeks before she disappeared. Rebecca was threatening to expose their relationship if he didn't divorce his wife and acknowledge the baby. Ashford was panicking, talking about how it would destroy his career and his family. But here's the bombshell. Morrison had tracked Ashford's movements the night Rebecca disappeared. Credit card records, cell phone pings, security camera footage. Morrison had built a timeline that placed Ashford near Rebecca's dorm around the time she vanished. Morrison had also discovered that Ashford had rented a storage unit under a fake name 2 days after Rebecca disappeared. The PI had been planning to investigate the storage unit when his business suddenly shut down in 2008. I sat there staring at these files, realizing I might be looking at evidence in an unsolved murder case. But then I noticed something weird. The files had timestamps showing they were last accessed in late 2008, just before the PI firm closed. Morrison had clearly been closing in on something big when something stopped him. I did some research on Frank Morrison. Turns out he died in a car accident in December 2008, just weeks after his last entries in the Rebecca Martinez file. Single car accident on a rural road, no witnesses. At the time, police ruled it an accident. Morrison had been drinking and lost control of his vehicle. But looking at these files, I started wondering if Morrison's death was really an accident. He was clearly closing in on something big, and someone with a lot to lose might have wanted to stop him. I spent the next few days digging deeper into Dr. Richard Ashford. He's still alive, still married to the same woman, still teaching at the same college. Respected professor, published author, no criminal record. From the outside, he looks like the perfect academic. But I found some interesting details about his life after Rebecca's disappearance. In early 2009, just a few months after Rebecca went missing, Ashford suddenly came into money. He bought a new house, a new car, took his family on an expensive European vacation. When I looked into it further, I discovered that Ashford's wealthy in-law father had died in early 2009, leaving a substantial inheritance to his daughter, Ashford's wife. Convenient timing. I also found that storage unit Morrison had identified. It's still being rented under the same fake name, payments automatically deducted from a bank account that traces back to a shell company. 15 years later, someone is still paying to keep that storage unit sealed. At this point, I knew I had to go to the police. I copied all of Morrison's files and took them to the detective division. Initially, they were skeptical. After all, this was evidence from a PI who'd been dead for 15 years. But when they saw the thoroughness of Morrison's investigation and the timeline he had built, they decided to reopen the case. Yesterday, they got a warrant to search that storage unit. Inside, they found Rebecca Martinez. Her remains, along with personal items that confirmed her identity. The medical examiner's preliminary report indicates she was killed by blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with Morrison's theory about what happened to her. They arrested Dr. Richard Ashford this morning. Apparently, when confronted with the evidence, he confessed to everything. Rebecca had been pressuring him to leave his wife, threatening to tell everyone about their relationship and the pregnancy. They met in her dorm room to talk. The conversation escalated. He hit her with a lamp during an argument, and she died. Ashford had panicked and moved her body to the storage unit, planning to dispose of it later. But the investigation intensified, and he was afraid to go back. So he just kept paying for the unit year after year, hoping it would never be discovered. The confession also revealed something else. Ashford admitted to forcing Frank Morrison off the road in 2008. Morrison had gotten too close to the truth, so Ashford followed him home from a bar one night and rammed his car on a dark stretch of highway. Morrison's death wasn't an accident, it was murder. Rebecca Martinez's family finally has closure after 15 years. Dr. Ashford is facing charges for 2 murders, and it all happened because I was doing routine IT work on an old hard drive. The detective told me that cases like this sometimes break because of random discoveries, evidence that was preserved when everyone thought it was lost. If that law firm had not gone out of business, if their old computers had not ended up in our recycling pile, if I had not decided to check the files before wiping them, Rebecca Martinez might never have been found. Sometimes justice is just a matter of being in the right place at the right time with the right skills to recognize what you're looking at. Update. Dr. Ashford was formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder today. Rebecca's family released a statement thanking everyone who never stopped looking for answers. They're planning a memorial service now that they finally have closure. Frank Morrison's family has also been notified that his death has been reclassified as a homicide and that his killer has been caught. I still can't believe this all started with me just trying to wipe some old hard drives.